Hi, and welcome to Learnings with Llamas. I'm Dr. Llama, and today we are going to look at how to do stacked decreases. So in the last video, we looked at stacked increases, and that looks like these. If you haven't already reviewed that video and started a swatch, you should start there. We're going to work stacked decreases in between our stacked increases. So that looks like this. Here's the finished swatch. So here, these gray lumps or nubs, these are my stacked increases, and between them, I've then worked my stacked decreases. So after working my stacked increases, I worked back across the row with gray. I switched to yellow and worked 2 rounds knitting all stitches in yellow. And at that point, I had 52 stitches. I had cast on 20 for this swatch, and then after working those increases, I had 52. So I worked across all 52 for 2 rows in the yellow to make 1 garter ridge. And now I'm going to go ahead and start working those decreases. I already worked one so that you can see the difference on the needles of what it looks like when you've worked a decrease and when you haven't. So here, over on these unworked stitches, my knitting is super lumpy. It does not look the way you would want it to look at this point, and I wanted to kind of focus on that for just a second so that you know when you're doing it, that this is actually what it should look like, because after I've worked that decrease, then I have this right here. So it creates that almost jigsaw puzzle piece in between my 2 increases. For my increases, I did 3 increases with a slip 2 back and then 1 last one before moving on. So I'm going to do the same thing with my decreases. You're going to follow along in the pattern, and I'm using the Never Never Socks pattern for this, so I'm following along on the swatch instructions, and I've reached the second decrease that I'm going to do on my swatch. And to work an increase, we did KYOK into 1 stitch. We turned 1 stitch into 3. For the decrease, we want to do the exact opposite. We want to turn 3 stitches into 1. So I'm going to do that with a K3 tog, or knit 3 together. I'm going to do it first in Continental, and then I'll switch and show you in English. So here, I'm inserting my right hand needle from front to back through 3 stitches as if to knit. So I'm treating 3 stitches as 1 and knitting through them. Now, just like on the increase, I'm going to slip 2 back. So here's the stitch I just worked. Here's the stitch just prior to it. I'm going to slip both of those back onto my right hand needle and work another knit 3 together. I'll slip it back again, so that's 2 slip backs. Work another knit 3 together. I'll slip 2 stitches for a 3rd time. Again, mirroring the number of increases I did. I want to work an equal number of decreases. I'll knit through those 3 stitches. And this time I'm not going to slip 2 back. And it's a good idea right here to stop and just read your work for a minute. I knew going into it I had 20 stitches. I started by knitting 4 and then working an increase. So I want to check that essentially I have 3 stitches in between each of the center stitches from my decrease. So here, the stitch right here, this guy, is the center stitch from this decrease. I've got 3 stitches in between, and now the center stitch from the decrease I just worked, so I know I'm in good shape. You're going to knit according to pattern to the next place where you're working a decrease. For me, that's 6. Now I'll do it again, but I'll switch and I'll show you while holding my yarn in my right hand to knit in the English style. All right, so again, I'm going to knit 3 together, coming from front to back, inserting my needle through all 3 stitches. And I'll work through that, and here's that stitch just created. I'll slip 2 back. And I like to count out loud when I'm doing this. I count when I slip, not when I do the knit 3 together. So that's 1, Sometimes if you find that when you inserted your needle you missed a stitch, just pull it out and start over. All right, I'll slip 2 back again. That's 2. Knitting 3 together. I'll slip back one more time, and that's 3. Again, I'm going to knit 3 together. And I've done 3 slip backs, so I'm not going to slip back again, but I will pause and I'll read my work. So here is the stitch at the center of this decrease, and here's the stitch at the center of this one, and I've got 3 in between, so I know I'm in good shape. If you're working the Never Never socks, which this swatch is from, you're working in the round, but for the swatch we work flat just to get a feel for working these increases and decreases. The main difference is at the end. So if I'm working in the round, I'm just going to keep doing this around. When I'm working flat, what I really have is a half increase at each end because I have just one side of one hill. Instead of normally I'm working my decrease between the 2 hillsides. Here at the end, I had to decrease just to accommodate the one hillside, and I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So instead of working the full stack decrease, I'm really just going to work a couple of decreases down it. So I'm going to work stitches as shown in your pattern. So for me, that's 3. And then I'm just going to work 3 simple knit 2 together decreases to clean off that end. Right? And then you want to take a break and check it, and you want to go ahead and count your stitches. So at this point you should be back to your original stitch count. For me that was 20. So I want to count them and make sure that I decreased correctly and that I'm back to 20. So I've got